Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was confirmed by the Senate committee in a vote around 14-13, advancing him to the next steps. This is just another great step, in my opinion, towards making America healthy again. Because for far too long, the American people have been subject to this tyrannical, rigged, corrupt system in America. From putting toxins, dyes, and chemicals into our food to corrupting our healthcare systems. There's no doubt that RFK Jr. will have his plate full when and if he swears in as the head of Health and Human Services. Here with me now to discuss the Senate confirmation, as well as what the future of this department could look like, is the Chief of Disaster and Emergency Medicine at Wellness Company, Dr. Kelly Victory. I had said this to you, Dr. Victory, before we got on to air here. We all love your name, and I guarantee you my audience, they're going to write me and ask, is that her real name? So for the record, for all of you that follow me, yes, it's her name. We should all be jealous that we don't have the same name. That's too neat. I digress here. Why do you think, Dr. Kelly, there is such this vitriol, antagonistic thing against Robert Kennedy? Why do they despise this guy, by the way, who once was on the other political aisle's team? Now it seems like the same team that they were championing, they hate this guy. In your opinion, why?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Aubrey. There's no question that the left in particular is terrified at the idea of Robert Kennedy Jr. being confirmed to head up HHS, and it's because he is threatening the status quo. For decades and decades, way before COVID, we have had senators, congresspeople, everyone in Washington receiving monies from Big Pharma and Big Ag. They have been feathering their nests on the backs of the American people, and they know that Robert Kennedy Jr. is about to bring that to a screeching halt. He called out some of those people in the hearings, including people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who were attacking him about his stance on vaccines, and he's pointing out, look, you have been for decades taking millions and millions of dollars from these agencies, from Big Pharma. The pharmaceutical lobby is the largest one, Aubrey, in Washington, D.C. They control people on both sides of the aisle, and Bobby Kennedy is likely to expose that. Furthermore, he's going to expose the graft, the corruption, the fraud that has been rife in our three-letter agencies, the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, and others. He is going to point out that we were lied to during the pandemic. These were not just mistakes my government made, they were lies my government told me. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is about to rip the lid right off of that, and people are going to be angry and upset. And so the left right now is doubling down. They are running around hair on fire and unhinged, hoping desperately that he won't get confirmed, but I suspect that he will.
Yeah, I do too, and some of my connections in Washington, they're actually telling me the same thing. One of the things that you referenced, Dr. Victory, and I thought it was very, very interesting. There's a clip, SOT 3. I want to just kind of cue that up here. I want you to look at this. Even though you've just echoed this, a lot of individuals, and the reason that I wanted to show this is because we've done a deep dive here. What we found that there were only select media outlets that were actually showing this. But when it got to this particular part, all of the major media outlets, for whatever reason, I have my suspicion, they opted out, didn't want the public to see it. Even though I'm glad to report our audience here is much larger than those that are supported by Big Pharma. But I want our audience to see this. I want to get your take on it. Let's go to that clip.
The health problems in this country that we must face honestly. And the first thing I've done every morning for the past 20 years is to get on my knees and pray to God that he would put me in a position to end the chronic disease epidemic and to help America's children. That's why I'm so grateful to President Trump for the opportunity to sit before you today and seek your support and partnership in this endeavor.
So, Dr. Victory, they seem to be almost apoplectic as it relates to anyone that mentions God, Donald Trump, things of that magnitude. I don't know. It's almost like a vampire's coming after them, and they need the garlic and the cross to kind of ward off this individual. Again, your opinion, I know it's a metaphor. Read the tea leaves here for us. Why do they hate language like this, Dr. Victory?
Again, they find it very threatening, Aubrey, for anyone to have faith outside of the government. Because if you believe in and you trust in a God, a higher being, if you turn your faith and your life and your entire purpose over to God, then they cannot control you. This is all about control. There's nothing the left likes more than control, which was why the pandemic was so expedient for them and why they are so terrified about a Robert Kennedy Jr. because they can't control him. I will say that Bobby Kennedy is certainly an unconventional pick to head up HHS, and that's exactly why he's the right person, because conventional picks have delivered us to the current abysmal state of ill health where we find ourselves today, where we have 80% of Americans have at least one chronic illness and 50% have more than two. We have rates of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, insomnia, anxiety, depression that are through the roof. And we are doing something very, very wrong. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is out to expose that. So instead, they hurl invectives and pejoratives at him, try to make him sound like he's a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer or whatever it is. But the reality is he is going to upset the status quo. He believes in something bigger and more powerful than government, and therefore he is not beholden to them.
You know, I'm glad you said that, and we'll pick some of that up even in our next block here with you. But I often think of this, Dr. Victory. I'm often in Europe. I look at their rates of various illnesses that they may have there. They don't have what we have here. The foods are different. I'm looking almost like preemptively that the FDA is all of a sudden, they had this great epiphany. Hey, we got to deal with this red dye stuff in our food. Is this a direct result? They know that, I don't know, the tide is changing. Therefore, they're trying to get ahead of the curve here. Dr. Victory, take 30 seconds.
No, absolutely. And you make a great point. If you compare a box of Kellogg's Fruit Loops sold in Los Angeles to one that's sold in London, they have totally different ingredients. Ours are rife with, artificial dyes, colorings, preservatives, where the ones sold in Europe have very, very few ingredients and don't contain all of the artificial additives. Many countries in Europe, for example, have rates of smoking higher than we have in the United States, but our rates of cardiovascular disease are higher. We are more obese over here. We have far more disease burden than they have in places, across the pond. And this is absolutely what Bobby Kennedy's going to expose, and the FDA is trying to get on the right side of history as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of questions. I believe that there is a real preemptive strike to do just that. We're coming right back with Dr. Kelly Victory. You don't want to miss it. Great questions that are coming up. You'll enjoy this. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Weber, CEO of AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. AMAC is at a crossroads, and the first 100 days of President Trump's administration will be critical in shaping our nation's future. That's why AMAC is proud to introduce the first 100 Days Tracker. Our tracker will monitor the administration and Congress as they work to deliver on the Make America Great Again agenda, ensuring progress on critical issues like sealing our borders, protecting your freedoms, and strengthening our economy. As an AMAC member, you'll receive daily updates and opportunities to take action. Together, we will hold our leaders accountable and celebrate the victories that make our nation stronger. Join the AMAC family today and be part of a movement driving real change. I look forward to welcoming you to AMAC.
Anyone home?
In here, Aunt Jean.
How's it going, honey?
There's a lot to take care of. More sympathy cards.
Your mom was well loved. I hope you know how grateful she was to have you.
I know. Speaking of grateful,
What is it?
it's a check from United of Omaha Life Insurance Company. Mom's life insurance.
Life insurance? So soon?
Just like they said.
My sister. Always looking out for her family.
I can still hear her. I don't want my bills to be your problem. This check will help a lot.
If you're age 45 to 85, you can't be turned down for up to $25,000 in life insurance from United of Omaha. Policies start at just $6.38 a month, and benefits could be paid in as little as 24 hours.
How did she qualify? You know, with her health issues.
With these policies, health issues don't matter. She was so relieved.
Policies are available with no health questions, no medical exam, no blood tests.
I just assumed life insurance would be way over my budget.
No one kept a tighter budget than Mom. If she can manage the rates, you can too.
But did her rates go up every year?
Nope. There's a rate lock built into the policy.
Policies start at just $6.38 a month. Your rate is locked in for life. The cost of a funeral can be $9,000 or more. With one call, you can give your loved ones the protection they need to help pay these costs. And unlike some policies, benefits are payable from the first day.
Mom just felt better knowing we'd have help, and I couldn't be more grateful. You should call United of Omaha.
I guess I'll never stop learning from my big sister.
Don't put off life insurance. Call United of Omaha today.
Call 800-274-2851. You can't be turned down. Call today to lock in your rates. 800-274-2851. That's 800-274-2851.
Flag boys rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
Really excited about our guest today. She is the Chief of Disaster and Emergency Medicine at the Wellness Center. Dr. Victory, have a lot of questions for her. I want us to go, though, to a quick clip, and we're going to come right back in with Dr. Victory. Let's go to that clip.
Mr. Kennedy, I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're adjourned.
So I played that for a reason. I had a few of my buddies. They were there in the audience. And I have to say this in full transparency. These are not guys and girls in this case that we have necessarily shared ideologically the same political bent. But they were huge fans of Dr. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, rather, and the great work that he has done. By the way, I recommended his book when he did it on Fauci. We've always had frontline doctors here at America Shines, some of the greatest minds that are out there saying, hey, wait, time out with this experiment. Your opinion, Dr. Victory, what are the three top things that Kennedy should go after immediately? Dr. Victory.
Great question. And I've known Bobby Kennedy Jr. for 20 years, more than 20 years. And I agree, we have not been in lockstep on certain things, particularly with regard to the climate. But he's spot on, as far as I'm concerned, on the things that he's approaching here in terms of healthcare and food additives and things of that sort. I think the top things from my perspective, number one, I think he should make sure that we drop all vaccine mandates. We have got to return to the basics of medical ethics, which begins with the concept of autonomy and informed consent. People should never be compelled to participate in a medical treatment or therapy against their will. So first and foremost, I think we need to get rid of medical mandates of any sort where they still exist at colleges or in the military or anywhere else. Number one. I think that he would do well to eliminate the pharmaceutical advertising on television. Right now, the United States is one of 2 countries in the world that allow it, the other being New Zealand. Everywhere else, it is not legal because you cannot have a free and open and honest press or media or have integrity in the media if they are owned by pharmaceutical advertising dollars. So I think that that is very important. And lastly, I think that we have to expose certain of the food additives that Bobby Kennedy and certainly I am aware are causing us to, are driving our illness burden. I am more of a proponent of the carrot versus the stick approach. And what I mean by that is rather than banning a particular food additive, I think we can use the power of economics to drive what we want people to do. You can tell, for example, companies, look, you can put anything you want in your food, but if you want to participate in the school lunch program, then you can't have these particular things in it because we are not going to allow our children to eat on taxpayers' dime, to be fed foods that are making them ill, that are driving obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and other things. So those are the top 3 I hope that he focuses on. He's got a lot on his plate, and if anybody is up to this task, it's Robert Kennedy Jr. He is indefatigable. He has great passion for this. As I said, he believes in a being much greater than the U.S. government. He is fearful of nothing, and I think that he will really hit the ground running once he's confirmed.
I'm glad you said that. I'm going to segue here because, again, this is something I've been screaming from the rooftop, at least in my little brain, for a long time, and to the audiences, places I've gone, lectured, etc. I've always been a proponent of this, and I'm very sincere when I say this, and I love your feedback on this. I've always been against taking federal subsidies that the poor have in this nation, that the tax guy and girl gives to these organizations and welfare, etc., and said, wait a minute, we're creating a larger problem because if we're giving out entitlements, why then should the guy or girl group who are the recipients of these entitlements, why should they be able to go into their local supermarket, purchase something that is absolutely destroying their physical bodies? By the way, then we, the taxpayer, again, have to subsidize their health.
Precisely.
Isn't that a perpetual cycle? And that is something also, Dr. Victory, maybe we should say in a nutshell, yeah, we're going to help you guys out. I think that's the right thing to do. If a guy, girl group is in need, let's do it. However, let's put a big however out there. You're not going to be able to go in and buy things that are killing you because then we're going to have to foot the bill for some long-term care. Am I being callous or have I hit something here, Dr. Victory?
You've hit the nail on the head, Aubrey, and I preach this all the time. We are on the hook for the health care of these people, and therefore we should not be providing foods for them that is driving a health care burden. We are the only country on the planet whose poor people are fat. In other countries, poor people are generally thin, sometimes very, very thin. Now, I am not suggesting that malnutrition is the way we want to go, but we are doing something very wrong in this country when the very people who cannot feed themselves without public assistance, who cannot take care of their own medical care without public assistance, when they are fat, we're doing something wrong, and we've got to stop it because we are on the hook for a huge burden on healthcare, and therefore we have an awful lot of control over the foods that we provide for them. We can make sure that they are eating healthful, high quality, limited, produced foods, so that you're not eating just, highly, highly over-processed foods. You should not be able to go and eat fast food if you are using public assistance. You should not be able to get sodas, sugar-containing drinks, those sorts of things, because we know the association with health issues. We're not being punitive. We're simply saying this makes common sense. If we are going to be in control of your health care and be on the hook to take care of all of your costs, then we should be providing for you things that do not drive a bigger bill.
So I thought about this, even in looking at the hearing and in full transparency. I had the opportunity during the 2016 candidacy then of candidate Trump to traveling with him. And again, in the green rooms, there's always a lot of snacks and goodies and that sort of thing that is there. And Kennedy said something during his confirmation, and I loved it, by the way. And he referenced, by the way, Donald J. Trump, his desire for the Mickey D's and his soft drinks and that sort of thing. I'm not a fan of it, but okay, that's fine. But would you be in favor also the Chick-fil-A's? And I'm not just singling out any group for any reason. I have no stock in any of these companies here. But would you be in favor of various companies, and on all products, let's put out what is in those buns. Let's put out what's actually in that meat. How would that look if you're for it? I am, by the way. How could the public be informed, Dr. Victory, on, by the way, take and eat product A, B, or C? Here are your chances of spiking to some form of cancer or diabetes, etc. How could we do that, Dr. Victory?
Well, I think transparency is huge, Aubrey, and I do think that it drives behavior. We know, I did studies in my previous life at a company where we put items in a vending machine with the label turned around so that you could actually see how many calories, how many fat grams was in the bag of peanut M&Ms you were about to buy versus the bag of pretzels or whatever it was. And so I do think that being transparent, allowing people to see what's in the foods is helpful. Your average American doesn't understand that Frito-Lay and McDonald's have it down to a science. They know how much sugar to add to salty foods to get you to keep eating them. There's a tremendous amount of sugar in McDonald's French fries because they know by doing that you don't taste it as sugar, but you will eat more of them. Likewise, they add a lot of salt to the sweet foods. I think exposing that and helping people to understand what they are getting is helpful. On top of it, then, we really need to make people more accountable for their choices. As I said, there's absolutely no reason we should allow our schools to be, serving Lunchables or these, highly sugared drinks, over-processed foods, and things that contain a lot of additives.
Yeah. Wow. Wish we had more time with you. She is the Chief of Disaster and Emergency Medicine at the Wellness Center, Dr. Kelly Victory. Thanks so much for being a part of what we do here at America Shines. Coming right back. You don't want to miss the rest of the program. We'll be right back.
This is our last chance to help save thousands of Holocaust survivors who are suffering in the former Soviet Union today. The needs that these forgotten Jews have are something beyond anything you can imagine.
Have you eaten this morning?
I ate the carrot, so I ate half of it yesterday, and I had it today for breakfast. And this is what she ate in 2 days, 1 carrot. Please pray for me.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews began this ministry to help elderly Jews living in horrible poverty around the world. We urgently need your gift of $25 now to help provide one survival food box with all of the foods they critically need for their diet for 1 month.
I am very proud to partner and align with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. This trusted ministry is giving Christians like me a way to bless elderly Jewish people who live in extreme poverty around the world.
I believe in God, but I sometimes feel maybe He forgot me. Perhaps you could tell my story, and I would find a matching soul that would understand. I face hunger again.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now to help rush one survival food box to a Holocaust survivor who is suffering and in desperate need.
This is what God wants from us. Just feed the hungry.
If you hear God's voice, I'm asking you to act now. Do it when it's on your heart. I pray that they'll know in their final months that they're not alone.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
So our country seems to be moving at a warp speed here. Another man moving fast and making big moves as the head of Dodge, who is Elon Musk. He and his entire team are at hard work, even right now as I speak, finding ways to cut government spending. My friends, we were paying for some absolutely ridiculous and disturbing things. So now we're going to shine the light and show you the truth. Joining me on this is the director of the Grover M. Herman Center for the Federal Budget at Heritage Foundation, Richard Stern. Richard, prior to me bringing you in, I want to show our audience something because I learned something in doing these type of deep dives. A lot that are in the legacy media, they don't show this. We crunch the numbers here. We're always finding out who's showing this, who's not showing this. And because we have such a large following here at America Shines, I want to show you something. I'm sure you already know it, but I want to make sure that our public here, that they are familiar with it as well. Let's go to the clip before we bring Richard in.
Let me give you an example of how screwed up the data is, Mr. President. This is a strong indicator of what's wrong. The Social Security Administration, if you ask them, will tell you that there are, according to their records, there are 6.5 million Americans living today in America who are 112 years of age or older. They say there are 6.5 million Americans who are at least 112 years old or older. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. President, but I don't know anybody who's 112 years old. And I checked, at any given time, there are about 40 people on an ongoing basis in the world who are fortunate enough to live to be 100.
So, Richard, we did a deep dive on this, and I had actually did this, man, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago for a different reason, for a different show. And what we found globally, anywhere from 300 to maybe 2,000 globally, these green zones. But when I realized that here in America that you and I, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, that we're funding, why do you think, in your opinion, Richard, that there's one side of the aisle, they're almost apoplectic about cutting the waste here? Richard, what am I missing? You're the brilliant guy. I'm not. I just report this stuff here. What am I missing here, Richard?
Well, I thank you for bringing me on about this. The important thing to remember is all 6.5 million of those 112-year-olds, they also vote, and we know which way that they vote, right? So this is what the left is doing. It's all about continuing the fraud cycle of laundering your money out of your paycheck, and mostly to these left-wing NGOs that do all of the nefarious things you think, whether it's gender ideology or trafficking people and drugs across the border, letting terrorists come across the border. An enormous number of the things are financed with your dollars that are stolen from you, laundered through the federal government. Look, the money the federal government alone knows goes to the wrong people is $400 billion a year. God only knows how much real waste and fraud there is in government spending.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Again, we deep dive on things of this magnitude. We're kind of geeky over here on our side. And again, no shame in being that. That's who I am. But with that being said, again, if we're all on the same team, and again, we can believe different things, that's fine. But if we're on the same team, why would we not want to eradicate the things that are harming us? Again, Richard, I looked at the numbers, case in point. Let's take the 400, forget about billion, just make it $350 million if we found ways. I'm a pure capitalist, not into socialism, but that means that we could give every American in this nation $1 million, and boy, I think it would change the whole magnitude of America. Am I reaching to say that there's a group intentionally that don't want these numbers to stop because somewhere they themselves are being funded through some channel? Or am I reaching, Richard?
You've hit the nail right on the head. Look, at the end of the day, there are really only two things governments can do. One, they can defend your basic God-given rights to life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. Or they can be a money laundering operation that steals from the many and gives to the concentrated and politically well-connected few. And I think any real survey of the federal government today is that a very, very small percentage of anything it does is truly related to that defense of your God-given rights and liberties. An overwhelming, unfortunate share of what the government does, trillions and trillions of dollars a year, is some form of special interest concentrated benefits, and it comes at the expense of the American public, whether it's through taxes or through the crushing inflation rates we've seen or mortgage rates that are over 7%. All of that is that means of financing for exactly what you were just talking about, the grift and the theft.
So, okay, play a double advocate game here with both me and the public. Let's say that we were able to eradicate this horrendous spending. How does that impact the next generation of kids that are coming up? They wouldn't be saddled with these trillions of dollars of deficit on them, but how would that make their life better? Richard?
Absolutely. So beyond the fact that they wouldn't be paying $8,000 per household today in interest costs on the debt, I want to give you one other vision on this. So the national debt right now is about $273,000 per American household. It's truly, as I like to call it, become America's second mortgage. But that's not just a financial debt. That's $273,000 per household that could have gone into building new factories, new housing, office buildings, parks, roads, the infrastructure that produces all of the goods and services we enjoy, that allows people to have more affordable homes. And instead, that's $273,000 of resources that the government has lit a match to and wasted per American household. So it's not just that our future generations would be unburdened by the debt, but we would have all of those extra investments in the economy. We would have all of those resources and all the prosperity that stems from it.
Richard, you've opened up a can of worms here, my friend, because I can hear some of my colleagues, their heads are spinning in a great way. And if they were here, I guarantee you, they would say, wait, Aubrey, don't let them go by that. Stay there for a moment. Listen, when I come back, again, I want to go back to that again. I have with us Richard Sterney again. He is the director of the Grover M. Herman Center for the Federal Budget at Heritage. I want to go back to the same question because I want to tie this in why voting really does matter in this country. And when you're informed, it actually benefits you, your household, and perhaps generations to come. We're coming right back right after a quick break.
the stars.
Why is Navage trusted by millions?
Before Navage, I was not living my best life because I could not breathe. Constant nasal congestion, constant blowing of the nose. The huge difference is the fact that Navage pulls it out. It's very gentle in the sense of when that suction happens, it's literally grabbing that water and that mucus and it's bringing it out into this tank. It's worth every penny that you pay for it. This product changed my life.
Available at major retailers or online at Navage.com.
Hello, this is Mike Huckabee. President Trump said he wants to take back the White House and teach our kids to love our country. That's why my team created a Kids Guide to President Trump. It'll teach your kids all about President Trump's accomplishments and his vision for America. And right now, I want to give it to you for free as part of this free gift bundle.
Order your free Kids Guide to President Trump, get a free bonus guide, and a free membership to AMAC featuring dozens of money-saving benefits at kidsneedtrump.com. That's kidsneedtrump.com.
If anyone has told you that gaining weight, feeling tired, and struggling with nagging digestive and joint issues is just a part of getting older, they are wrong. My name is Dr. Stephen Gundry, and after years of struggling with these same issues, I found a new way to support my health at home by making one simple change to my diet. It's called BioComplete 3. BioComplete 3 works by restoring your gut health from the inside out. This is a major part of how I lost 70 pounds and have kept the weight off for 25 years. It's not just me. This is working for everybody. Joe helped his gut health, and you can see the changes, not just how he looks on the outside, but how much better he felt on the inside.
I was 270. I'm now 140. It just feels amazing. Thank you, Dr. Gundry.
I helped all these people achieve incredible changes to their weight, their digestion, even their skin. And for a limited time, you can try BioComplete 3 risk-free for 90 days. Go to guthealthsecret.com.
America is celebrating the start of President Trump's second term. Now, for a limited time, you can get the Kids Guide to President Trump and a limited edition collectible pin for free. Hurry, supplies are very limited. Visit freetrumpbundle.com now. That's freetrumpbundle.com.
What if you could tackle your dog's itching, soft stools, and low energy? Millions of pet parents are raving about Dr. Marty Nature's Blend.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues.
I'm Dr. Marty. I've been a veterinarian for more than 50 years. The dangerous ingredients added to many pet foods could be impacting your dog's lifespan. That's why I formulated Nature's Blend.
Now you can feed your dog wholesome cuts of real meat, vegetables, and fruit with no artificial preservatives or fillers. Try Dr. Marty risk-free. Go to drmartypets.com/TV.
The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need, and discounts for seniors and military.
Battle cry of freedom.
The director of the Grover M. Herman Center for the Federal Budget at the Heritage Foundation is with us today, Richard Stern. Before we bring him in, I want to show you, our audience, a quick clip. I want to get Richard's comment on this. Let's go to the clip.
Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and
no,
protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
contributions from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate
Bernie,
tax.
you were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right.
I confess, Richard, that was almost comic hour for me when I saw it. I was watching the hearings live during that time, and Bernie was just lying, by the way. We had the numbers here, actually got even more than Kennedy had put out there on the record. And he went from, no, I just got it from this group to, well, they were part of this group. And he kept finding himself being very fluid here. But isn't this the problem? Doesn't this, Richard, go back to what and where you and I left off? Again, I want to amplify this for just our audience to grab. If we're $270,000 per person in this country that he or she are saddled with, again, I want this to be crystal clear. It matters in who we vote for, because if we have guys like a Bernie Sanders type or those like Elizabeth Warren and others, they tell us, hey, not good for you, but it's good for them. If they are the conduits and the reasons why we're finding ourselves with this huge burden around our necks here, then voting should really matter, and we should be well informed. Again, in all fairness, this is why I love the Heritage Foundation. You guys do the deep dive. You got the funds to do it. Kudos. I've been a public supporter of you guys for many, 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 many years. Please take our audience back why these things matter, why we should vote in such a way for individuals that will not put this massive burden, Richard, around our necks. Richard.
Well, we appreciate the spotlight, and we appreciate the spotlight that Kennedy put on these senators. And look, this is exactly the problem. It's called regulatory capture. It's that these politicians are in the pocket of special interests who, instead of trying to produce a good product, have instead made their business control of the government. Look, the Founding Fathers expressly prohibited granting titles of nobility in the Constitution because they didn't want to replicate this disaster that they had left in Europe, a disaster where the government confers benefits by fiat, where the government chooses winners and losers. That's what nobility is. And that's what you're seeing today in Congress, is senators working with unelected bureaucrats to confer effectively titles of nobility to their donors, to the corporations that they're in the pocket of, and that erodes and destroys the entrepreneurial and innovative spirit of America. And the federal debt, the tax burdens you pay, the inflation taxes you've been paying are all part of that bill to satiate those donors to those groups. And if we didn't have that, incomes would be vastly higher in America. We could get back to the kind of economic dynamism that we all knew under Reagan and in the founding period of this country's history. And that's what we need to get back to.
So is that the reason, Richard, why? And again, let me just tee this up here, because this is something, again, I personally have been saying almost ad nauseum. And it's simple. The reason that we're seeing such a delay, even from some of the judges there in Washington, to say, wait a minute, Trump, you guys can't do this. Is it because these congressional leaders, they cannot ever pass bills like this? So they create these agencies that kind of do their dirty work for them, because if we, the American people, say, wait, time out, which we should be engaged and involved, I get it. Are they not then using these agencies to kind of do their dirty work because their kids or their organizations, or they're getting some sort of kickback in their various congressional districts, etc.? Shouldn't then, speaking from a pure federalist position, why not say, listen, let's eradicate all of them. Let's get rid of the U.S. aid. Let's get rid of anything that we're pouring our money into, and allow the states, the way I think our founders really set this up. Why can't the states do their own governing? Am I being a bit optimistic here when I say that, Richard?
No, you're being principled, and I appreciate it. Look, for the entire period of the founding through 1913, that is precisely how it worked. Now, what happened in 1913? The federal income tax, the Federal Reserve, and the beginning of this Leviathan federal bureaucracy that now employs 2+ million people who do exactly what you're talking about. They're unelected, they're unaccountable, they write rules, they write regulations. The code of regulations is longer than the Bible several times over. The tax code itself is about twice the length of the entire Bible. And these are the things that burden Americans, that steal your resources, that make it impossible to really innovate and produce in this country in the way that we are used to, the way that the U.S. led the world in. And this is exactly where this came from. And I think we're finally seeing a popular movement that is at least taking control of some of the government, that wants to return to that constitutional order and a country that respects your agency, your rights, and lets you keep the fruits of your labor.
So President Donald J. Trump, just several days ago, he came out and said, listen, let's get rid of this whole idea of the federal tax, which I was on board because I get it. I get the 1913 principle. When we switch, when we change, a lot of our audience may not be that familiar with it. Could that really happen? Because this is what you'll hear. Well, how in the world are they going to be able to fund the military? How will we have these various things that would go on? If we were to go back to a more principled time where Richard and Aubrey could keep the money that we earned, how then, Richard, would we fund, for those that don't get this here, the coalition, how then would our military be funded? How could we do both things at once? And is it a great idea? By the way, I'm on record for saying it is a fantastic idea to totally eliminate this whole debacle because I see it as a pyramid scheme. But could Trump, his team, if we could get this passed, could it actually work, Richard, for America? Richard.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think one of the worst kept secrets, at least among budget policy people, is that the military itself is only about 14% or so of the federal budget. And if you want to add in the other core constitutional duties of the government, there aren't that many more of them, it's not that much more money. So the truth is, you could
10 years or 20 years from now, and they'll be going through the same stuff, the wars, and you know.
We're interrupting this program for a special live report.
Royce White here. We are breaking from our regular Real America's Voice programming to take you to Steve Bannon speaking live at the Conservative Republican Student Conference at Harvard University.
And respect our guest. And I'd like to introduce Steve. Steve is an American political strategist infamous for really orchestrating a masterful 2016 campaign victory for President Donald J. Trump, and served as the White House chief strategist in 2017, and also founder of Breitbart News, and has brought it really to the forefront. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Steve Bannon.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you guys interviewing? What is this? I've never seen so many coats and ties. Come on, man. Unbelievable. Not like the old days. 40 years ago. I think I've been back 2 or 3 times in 40 years. 40 years anniversary's coming up. My graduation. Days of Thunder. I was told I was supposed to keep it low key today because you guys you're the thinkers and debaters, right? That's not right. You guys are action oriented. Days of Thunder. You like what you've seen so far? You like what you've seen so far? That's thought in action. What did Christmas every day. Christmas every day. Another big package. Remember, flood the zone. Step 1, flood the zone. Don't give 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Give 12, 15. Overwhelm them. They're broken, right? They're so tough and so strong and so big. They're nothing. Last night I was watching Stephanie Ruhle. MSNBC had 4 or 5 of these, these progressives, media, thinkers. They were broken. Curled up. They're dependent on the courts. They have no action. What did Aristotle tell us? Where's character is shown where? Come on, you're thinkers. Where's character shown? In action, in action, in action. You can think all the great thoughts you want. Develop all the theories you want. Where's the theater of God's judgment? Theater of God's judgment is in action. Action, action, action. That's what this movement is, MAGA, that's taken back this country and now seizing the institutions of this country that progressive left have dominated 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And all we did was talk about it. I told the New York Times the other day, I am not a conservative. Because conservatives are pussies. Think about it for a second. Look at USAID. Right? Look at all that. For years, this got debated in Congress. You know, Mike Benz and one of the theoreticians, and Eli Crane and Matt Gaetz. You know, folks who watch War Room, we would stream it, I think, the summer of 23, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, all night, these appropriations, because we wanted single subject appropriations bills, remember? And so they'd have these appropriations committees, and we had a huge audience who was watching it like 2 in the morning, and MTG, and Eli Crane, and Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs, the typical BBC, all the time fighting. We're up there going after USAID. And it was not even voted at a committee. 2/3 of Republicans said no. Paul Ryan did not let anybody even investigate it. Look what we found. Not only is it a cutout for the CIA to do all type of nefarious activities for the deep state, it funds billions of dollars into the tech oligarchs in the apartheid, city of Silicon Valley to suppress you. Besides funding every NGO to invade the southern border, to invade our country. This has been around for years as an open secret. That's what Washington, D.C. is. It's all open secret of what goes on. Remember the movie, you probably maybe not old enough. You ever seen The Untouchables with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery? You seen that? Right? And they're sitting there and they're talking, and Sean Connery turns to Kevin Costner playing Elliot Ness and says they're having a debate about what to do and how to stop whiskey during Prohibition. And the old Irish cop that Connery plays says, everybody knows where the whiskey is. It's who has the will, and he goes to an axe. He says, who has the will to go across the street and beat down the door? And that's the inflection point of the movie. That's when Kevin Costner gets the axe and goes and beats down the door. That's what MAGA is. That's what we're doing now. That's what Days of Thunder. This just didn't happen. Think about it for a second. President Trump, we win this come from behind race in 2016. And President Trump comes out of nowhere. I don't know if you're religious or not. You know, President Trump, and I think he's more religious today, he says that. He's not particularly churchy, if you know what I mean. But he's an instrument of divine providence. I saw it because in 2016, we basically had a plane, a man, a message, and that's about it. I stepped into the campaign, I think on August 13th, 14th, something like that, we're 10, 12 points down. The reason we didn't have a chance to do a get ready for transition, we only closed at the end. And won at the end. And how we do it? Going up to the blue wall, which everybody mocked and ridiculed us every single day. They'll never do it. Trump can't do it. We won Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And then, and I thought I did a pretty good job, 63.5 million votes. In 2020, the brother got 74 million votes. Real votes, not phony votes. The Biden votes that beat Trump in 2020, they had never voted before. They did not vote in 2022 in the midterms, and they did not come out and vote in 2024. You know why? Because they don't exist. Of course the election was stolen. Now think about it for a second. When President Trump left Washington, D.C., there was a handful of people out at Andrews Air Force Base to see him off. You know, he was abandoned by the Republican Party, abandoned by the political class, abandoned by the media. Got down to Mar-a-Lago. Even a third of our audience, the hardest core MAGA, probably lost a third of the audience there for a moment because they didn't know. They said, what happened? Rupert Murdoch and Fox has dined off of Trump for years. Rupert Murdoch sent out an email that came up in the trial and the depositions. He says, we're going to make Trump a non-person. Trump was not live on Fox for like a year, like 18 months, because they were afraid he was going to talk about, the stolen election. He was abandoned. The great new hope was going to be Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley or some Republican du jour. they're not going to be president of the United States. It's just not going to happen. We knew from the beginning, in those dark days of January of 2021, that Trump was coming back. We had his back, of course. He's on the hero's journey. There's a logic to American history. He had to come back. He had to take on Biden and the apparatus that stole it from him. And at that time, two things happened. You talk about populism. You know what populism is? It's the precinct strategy. Trump had all his supporters, what they did, we went to ground and went to the very basics. Take it back precinct by precinct. The common man and common woman doing what? Using your agency. That's all the great philosophies in the world. Get up off your ass and get something done and fight for it and do not back down. This is what they did day in and day out with the Republican establishment hating them. And we built momentum. You took over precincts, then you took over counties, then you took over state parties. And President Trump's movement started, or rekindled, I should say. But at the same time, public intellectuals, people of ideas, said, we believe in this guy too. Now, I guess the rubric is now Project 2025. But there was many groups. It's Brooke Rollins and America First Priorities with Stephen Miller. It's Stephen Miller's America First Law. It's Russ Vought's Center for Renewing America. It's Dr. Roberts and the folks over at Heritage. Some of the most at the vanguard of conservative thinking went in for years and thought of these verticals, right? Everything, national security, economic policy, social policy, immigration, and tied it not just with ideas and policy, but built up cadres. Like you're some people that could work together, could network, to become subject matter experts. On when you win the presidency, you get 4,000 people to run the government, 4,000 political appointees. There's roughly 2.5 million bureaucrats, right? There's about 2.5 million uniformed military service. And then there's about 5 million contractors at kind of the management level. So there's roughly 10 million people, which kind of makes sense. It's a $6.5 trillion entity on revenue with, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 trillions of assets. You get 4,000 people. 3,000 can hit the deck place running day one. All you need is a security clearance. 1,000 have to go through the Human Resources Department, which is called the Senate, for confirmation. And they can slow that down. So Project 2025 and all the other groups were thinking of what would they accomplish? What would be President Trump's second term? How do you think Days of Thunder came about? Do you think they just thought it up on November 6th? This has been years and years and years of people working. And that's why, because when you go against an apparatus, because they're anti-democratic, just because you win an election, they don't care. Trump won in 2016. Do you think they sat there and said, oh, this is great, we're just going to toss the keys to Bannon and Flynn and Navarro and Trump? No. They came up immediately with the Russia hoax, the nullification project, I called it. They tried to nullify it. The same here. You're seeing the resistance start right now. Now, they're so broken because they weren't expecting this. They weren't expecting the scale, the depth, and the urgency. Because flood the zone is also like maneuver warfare. Like Napoleon, envelop them, turn the corner, turn it, flank them, keep moving, never stop, never stop. Tomorrow 10, the next day 10, the next day 10. They can't regroup. They can't think about it. You know why? Power. They've had power for so long, they're lazy. They've had the power and control of every institution. You see over here, they've controlled the universities. They control the entire education system. They control pop culture and high culture. They control Wall Street, Silicon Valley, the corporations. Think about the corporations. Were anything more woke than the corporations? What do you think they teach over Harvard Business School? You think they teach a lot of ethics? No, they do not. It's all about profitability and getting along. And not being outed. Is put your head down and play the game. Get your stock options. Get your warrants and move on. Retire. Lead a good life. Quit early. The corporations were the instrument of some of the most progressive and obnoxious and insidious actions to destroy people's career. If you sat in a corporation and said you were a professed Christian, you were outed. You were gone. It's like being a traitor to the system.